Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Colton Ogburn, and the days of Henry Cavill playing Superman might not be as over as we thought they were. That's right, I think that based on some direct quotes, meetings, and post-credit scenes, James Gunn has a plan in place to show us his new Superman, portrayed by David Cornsweat, going toe-to-toe with our previous Man of Steel, Henry Cavill. And the recent trailer for Peacemaker Season 2 and its multiversal element may just be our latest in a long list of clues connecting this new James Gunn DCU to the old Snyderverse DCEU. Stick with me. So in that infamous Black Adam post-credit scene featuring the arms-loaded Cavill of Steel's big return, we saw him alongside a hologram of Viola Davis's Amanda Waller, who, remember, is still part of this new James Gunn DCU. Now, at the time, this scene was intended by The Rock to be setting up a Superman vs. Black Adam movie, but this scene may have unknowingly been setting us up for something far greater than whatever The Rock thought he was cooking.
What The Rock is cooking!
No.
You see, I don't think that Viola Davis is playing a variant version of the DCEU Amanda Waller in this new DCU, nor do I think she's playing some like splintered version of herself or anything like that. I think that it's possible, perhaps even likely, that she is playing the exact same Amanda Waller from the DCEU, meaning that Amanda Waller may have gained access to interdimensional travel like we have seen well established here in Peacemaker Season 1 and in that most recent trailer for Peacemaker Season 2.
You.
Now, speaking of seemingly abandoned post-credit scenes like that of Supes and Waller in Black Adam, there is also the post-credit scene from Shazam 2, which featured the Peacemaker crew, who is now also in the DCU. There's also this post-credit scene from The Flash, and this one from Zack Snyder's Justice League, both of which have a huge multiversal bend that I think could be connected to James Gunn's grand plan. So let's take a look back at some quotes from Gunn, going all the way back to his announcement of Chapter 1 of the new DCU, Gods and Monsters. And let's talk about Gunn's recent meeting with Zack Snyder, his previous meetings with Henry Cavill and The Rock, and how all of this could be leading to a climactic multiversal smackdown meant to rival that of Marvel's multiverse saga.
Can we just be done?
Ooh, we're just getting started.
No, with the whole multiverse thing. It's not great.
No, hear me out. I know that there is multiverse fatigue right now, I get it, but I do not think that that should dissuade DC and James Gunn from telling some of their greatest stories from the comics later down the road, many of which are multiverse stories. And while this all might sound like a little much, and Colton going crazy over here with his theories, I mean, come on guys, in a world where Robert Downey Jr. can go from being Iron Man to Doctor Doom, and Jason Momoa can go from being Aquaman to Lobo, you gotta wonder what villainous role could be waiting in the wings for our former Superman. And hey guys, before we get rolling, I just want to make sure that you check out our merch store, ScreenCrushMerch.com. We have lots of fun nerddom-inspired shirts. We've got this DCEU funeral shirt, a collection of Joker merch, like this Live with Murray Franklin blood splatter design, and one of my personal favorites, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's your mom. Shopping our merch store is the best way to support our channel so that I can keep making crazy theory videos like this one. Thank you so much for your support. So in order to explain this theory, we need to do a quick refresher on all that has transpired since Henry Cavill was back as Superman for like 3 seconds and then almost immediately shit-canned and replaced. While on the other hand, other DCEU characters like Amanda Waller and the Peacemaker crew who survived this purge. And then we'll dive deep into which secret role I think Cavill may actually be playing in this new Superman movie and in future DCU films. So look, it's no secret that I am a huge Man of Steel fan. Henry Cavill to me was an amazing Superman, and I also like Zack Snyder as a director, but the DCEU or the Snyderverse, whatever you want to call it, it was a mess to say the least. Most of its projects post Man of Steel just weren't my cup of tea. But that all started to change when James Gunn entered the picture and gave us maybe the greatest DCEU film ever made, emphasis on the Suicide Squad. He also gave us Peacemaker, one of the greatest shows I've seen in years that far too few people have actually seen. Now, it wasn't exactly a shock that the guy who did Guardians of the Galaxy could deliver a quality Suicide Squad movie and a great Peacemaker show, both of course being about a ragtag group of anti-heroes saving the day. It's kind of James Gunn's thing. He even did it again with Creature Commandos.
You wanted monsters. You got monsters.
But the real head scratcher, however, came when they offered James Gunn Superman and then the entire DCU as its co-CEO. This was a huge shakeup and a much needed one, but with this gain of James Gunn came a huge loss, the loss of Cavill's Superman. And what made it sting even more was that at the same time as this big shakeup at DC was happening and its eventual reboot was beginning to brew, here comes The Rock trying to change the hierarchy of power, or what the ever he was going on about with his Too Little Too Late Black Adam movie.
Because the hierarchy of power in the DC universe is about to change.
You see, Man of Steel 2 had been on hiatus for years. Nothing was happening. Justice League sucked, and Cavill hadn't played Superman in years, and there was the whole thing with the theatrical release of Justice League and the Snyder Cut and the pandemic. It was just all a really big mess. And while I guess Henry Cavill wasn't like officially let go from the Superman role just yet, there were no immediate plans for his return as the Man of Steel. In fact, there was even another Superman film being developed by J.J. Abrams that would have featured a black Superman. And for obvious reasons, that version was not going to be played by Henry Cavill. We were at a point in this collapse of the DCEU franchise where it would have been more easily accepted that Cavill's time as the character was just over. And the soon-to-be-announced reboot of Superman, penned by James Gunn, may not have gotten so much pushback had WB not simultaneously and at the very last minute brought back Cavill's Superman in that post-credit scene of Black Adam. I mean, guys, they had Cavill announce that he was back as Superman, and they were making Man of Steel 2 and a Black Adam vs. Superman movie, all of this without consulting DC or its new incoming leadership in James Gunn. I mean, in like a matter of days, they dropped all of these new plans right before Gunn came into his new role as co-CEO. And it should be noted that The Rock actually went over the head of the old DC boss, Walter Hamada, and he got WB higher-ups to greenlight bringing Cavill in for this post-credit scene and announcing this theoretical Man of Steel 2 and Black Adam vs. Superman movie. But then just a few weeks later, when reality set in and James Gunn settled into his new role, all of that hastily announced bullshit that was nothing but a marketing campaign for Black Adam got squashed. And it made it look like James Gunn waltzed in and fired Cavill and shut down all of these grand plans, when in reality, none of that was ever actually happening. To quote James Gunn himself, he said, "We didn't fire Henry. Henry was never cast," meaning that Gunn never planned to have Cavill play his new version of Superman. Now, here in a minute, I do want to talk about some meetings that James Gunn had with Zack Snyder, Henry Cavill, as well as The Rock, and potential plans for Black Adam and Superman's future in this new universe later down the road. And I want to talk about how all of that provides some evidence for our theory on Cavill's potential villainous return. But first, let's break down the post-credit scene that started it all. In that post-credit scene from Black Adam, Viola Davis's Amanda Waller, who is still part of this new DCU alongside James Gunn's new Superman, she holograms in and then threatens Black Adam with Cavill's Superman.
I can call in a favor and send people who aren't from this planet.
Now, Waller, remember, for the longest time was the lady who put bombs in the necks of incarcerated supervillains and used them as hitmen.
What, we some kind of Suicide Squad?
And we all know she's a bit of a control freak and doesn't like it when great power is out of her own hands. And so, naturally, she perceives her lack of control of Black Adam as a great threat, and she brings in her biggest gun to rein him in, Superman. Now, this team-up between Amanda Waller and Superman was odd. I mean, what the hell is Superman doing working for Waller? It was pretty well established in the DCEU that she and Superman are on polar opposite sides of how to deliver justice and protect the world. I mean, it was even set up in that first Suicide Squad movie that Amanda Waller and our dark, gritty, super violent, gun-toting Batman weren't even on the same page because Waller's methods were just a little much.
There's a difference between us. You believe in friendship, I believe in leverage.
You should shut it down.
I guess the plan was that if Superman and Waller were seen working together, it would be a way of setting up Black Adam to be such a huge threat that even Superman and Amanda Waller were able to put aside their differences to keep him contained. But what if it got darker than that? What if, like every other person who works for Amanda Waller, what if she has dirt on old Supes? Or maybe she threatened to reveal his secret identity. Maybe she has a stockpile of kryptonite. Maybe she showed Superman alternate realities and the destruction that would come if he didn't listen to her. The possibilities, they're endless, but I have an idea in mind that may actually follow up this post-credit scene from Black Adam and tie it into James Gunn's first big culmination film of the DCU, a Kingdom Come Crisis on Infinite Earth style battle between the old DC universe and the new, kind of like what we're getting with the MCU versus the old Fox X-Men universe in Doomsday and Secret Wars. When James Gunn unveiled his DC slate, it didn't just include the projects that he was overseeing from the ground up, but at the time he was talking up films like The Flash, Shazam 2, and Aquaman 2. And I mean, sure, he's the DC Studios CEO, it was his responsibility to push those upcoming movies. But I always found it interesting how he kind of implied that these two universes, the DCEU and his new DCU, were partially connected. And he even claimed that the events of The Flash were going to be what reset the DC universe.
That resets the entire DC universe,
transforming it into this new universe where the James Gunn movies would take place. At the time, it was heavily implied that the new world that the Flash woke up in come the end of his movie was this new DCU. But that's not what happened. The Flash did wake up in a new timeline, but not that of the DCU. In fact, he woke up in a universe where George Clooney is Batman. But I still think that Flash's multiversal shenanigans could be tied to the story that James Gunn is crafting. In the process of the Flash saving the multiverse from collapse, that may have been the catalyst for the in-canon creation of the new DC universe as part of this ever-expanding multiverse. In that original announcement from Gunn, he really did act like these upcoming movies were connected to his big plan for the future of the DCU. He went as far as to say that Shazam fit into this new post-Flash plan and that Aquaman 2 leads straight into all of these new projects.
Shazam has always been off kind of in his own part of the DCU and then into Aquaman 2, which leads directly into our next few projects.
But now looking back, that was all just like promotional bullshit, right? Well, maybe not. In the post-credit scene for The Flash, where Barry Allen is in this new timeline with apparently George Clooney's Batman, we get this scene with him and Aquaman.
They were all Batman. They were all Bruce Wayne. But each of them was a completely different person.
I think that this scene may be implying that the Flash movie didn't just create one new timeline, but that we were meant to understand that the DC multiverse is a wide, ever-expanding place, which is exactly what we saw happen as Flash saved the multiverse and these spheres of reality uncollided. This may be the in-canon moment when Gunn's DCU was created, a universe that has pieces from that old DCEU, but also brand new pieces like our new Superman and a Lobo played by Jason Momoa. And there are also universes where these DC Elseworld stories that Gunn has mentioned can take place, such as the Matt Reeves Batman universe.
Matt Reeves Batman or Todd Phillips Joker, that it is clearly labeled as DC Elseworlds.
So while this establishment of a cohesive, interconnected universe known as the DCU is meant to tell an interconnected story, the multiversal angle allows for stories to be told outside of that continuity as well.
And if something is outside of that it is clearly labeled outside of the mainstream DCU continuity.
And maybe, just maybe, this will allow for all of those different universes to cross over, or maybe they already have.
What do you mean by that?
That's right, I think it's possible that this masked foe we see going toe-to-toe with Superman, and who is 100% Ultraman, could be Henry Cavill's secret role in this new Superman movie.
I don't know what they're doing, but it sounds pretty wild.
And this could be a direct continuation of the apocalyptic future that Zack Snyder was setting up years ago in Batman v Superman and Justice League. Maybe that's even what Gunn and Snyder talked about at this recent meetup between the two. In Snyder's movies, it was established that there is a dark and grim future coming where essentially Superman breaks bad. Well, we pretty much have an evil Superman confirmed for this new Superman movie in Ultraman. In the comics, Ultraman is essentially this alternate and evil version of Superman, most commonly associated with a group called the Crime Syndicate, an evil counterpart to the Justice League, which, surprise surprise, Amanda Waller in the comics has led this group of foes before. Now, in typical comic book movie fashion, I could see them taking some creative liberties and smushing together a few different stories to create a scenario where Lex Luthor now has his hands on his very own Superman from another universe by working with Waller and their syndicate. It has been widely speculated and reported, in fact, that this room of cages that we have seen in the trailers for Superman are similar to that of the pocket dimensions that we have seen White Dragon use in Peacemaker Season 1, and such as here in the Peacemaker Season 2 trailer, where Peacemaker enters a new dimension and meets a variant of himself. So if Lex Luthor has access to other realities via Amanda Waller, and the post-credit scene from The Flash established a new wide-ranging multiverse, and Zack Snyder always intended for Cavill Superman to break bad, and the last time we saw Cavill Superman, he was working for Amanda Waller, it all just kind of connects. So what if Ultraman winds up being a version of Cavill Superman who in his universe got caught up working for Waller to defeat Black Adam, and in the process these two meatheads ended up destroying the entire planet and fulfilling the prophecy of Superman's loss of Lois, and then his heel turn, perhaps even joining Darkseid, and ultimately causing the apocalypse and the end of his own world. The Flash movie, and say what you will about it, it did a pretty good job at establishing that sometimes universes, they just die, and there's nothing you can do to stop it without causing the entire multiverse to collapse. So I can easily imagine a scenario where Amanda Waller leaves this dying universe of the DCEU to travel to one of the many others that she has access to via her interdimensional doors. And with her, she could bring her newly tamed pet, a deformed and broken Superman from a fallen world, and who is then used by her comrade Lex Luthor Luthor to take on this world's own pesky son of Krypton. In James Gunn's meetings with Henry Cavill and The Rock, all parties seemingly expressed interest in working together in the future at DC. The Rock even stated that while Black Adam won't be in the first chapter of the DCU, they are keeping the door open for, quote, future DC multiverse chapters, so we shall see. But hey, let's say Cavill isn't the one behind the Ultraman mask. It could just as easily be a clone being portrayed by David Cornsweat, or a parallel Earth version of Cornsweat Superman, kind of like Bizarro Superman. In fact, that's probably more likely. But even if that is the case, that would still open the door for the multiverse to have a role in this new DCU, and that still leaves the door open for Cavill's ultimate return somewhere down the line, in the same vein of that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man return, or Robert Downey Jr.'s big return as Dr. Doom. I know everyone's kind of tired of the whole multiverse shtick, but I could easily see in 10 or 15 years time people feeling that nostalgia for Henry Cavill Superman and him returning as this Kingdom Come type Superman, and us getting to see these two Supermen fight. But hey, those are just my thoughts. I want to hear yours down in the comments below. Let me know, do you think that Henry will be returning to DC? Will he be playing Superman? Could he play a character like Zod in the same vein as Momoa playing Lobo? Let me know down in the comments below. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Colton Ogburn.